Thank you. Speakers, please.
Thank you for the nice introduction. A very good morning, all of you. Today seems to be a bright sunny day compared to yesterday. And I hope you enjoy the session and the time discussions you're going to have with us. In a way, it's a very proud moment for me. So I've been with the ISS NUS for over 15 years, and I see that my students start doing a lot of interesting things in the industry. So when there was this talk panel that was designed up, I sort of went through and then looked at very good practitioners that are trying out all these greenfield technologies inside, very actively contributing back to data intensive and cloud native projects. I thought this was the best time to do an interesting tech discussions that you might love as well. It feels like a parent, and teachers are also lucky to have so many contacts throughout their career. And it takes a lot of pride to introduce all of them who are part of ISS alumni in the past. So I'll start with the seniors. Pier is with the Temasek. He did knowledge engineering with us, and he's quite passionate about data intensive projects. I do read a lot of his interesting blogs about how he thinks about models and how he comes up with machine learning projects and so on and so forth. He was doing software for a long time, so I'm sure he has a lot of interesting stories to share. He also had an adventurous startup experience in his long list of achievements. So I do welcome Pier, and it's a warm, happy welcome from all of us at ISS. Then
Thanks, happy to be here. Yeah.
I'm going to introduce Ramurthy. I remember looking at Ramurthy when we started the curriculum a few years back. So he was a consultant in India back then, and then he decided to come and take an overseas education with us. He's been very active in the Dynamics 365. I always enjoy the way that he blogs about it. He does a lot of startup chapter meetings. He's quite a leader in inborn. I do see the way that he mentors his juniors and then he takes his team along. So it has always been a pleasure to look at his technical thinking, his customer engagements, and his achievements in the back. Welcome, Ram, and nice to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Suriya. Thanks for having me.
Pranay is a data technologist. So we sort of got together when we started doing big data as a subject in NUS. So he has been doing a lot of BI projects in the past. And after coming into NUS and then finishing the master's, he has gone back to the industry to start contributing. He has 10 over years of experience in all these BI, NLP, and data technologies. I'm sure he has some interesting perspectives for today. Welcome, Pranay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Karthy is the little one and very academic and enthusiastic. So that's why I thought I'll have a age difference group that will bring in different perspectives. What is interesting about Karthi's profile is he's quite quick in getting himself certified in all the clouds, So he understands Azure, AWS, polyglot persistence, and whatnot. So it'll be interesting to hear from a junior who is starting up his career in industry, looking at all these green technologies, and it'll be very interesting to see what he's thinking about those things. So he did a pitch dip with us, and he's back in the industry contributing. Welcome, Karthy. It's good to have you here. Yeah.
Thanks, Suriya. Glad to be here.
So we're going to conduct this panel in a sort of very informal remark style. Okay? So what we would like to hear is about their work experiences, stories that they like to share. Of course, we welcome a lot of Q&A as we go along, and if it's relevant, we'll take it up. Otherwise, we'll take it up in the end to distinctly answer those sessions for you. It's a very interesting time to be in computing or software engineering or data engineering per se, because there are a lot of interesting automated solution stacks and platforms that are coming out every day. So we talk about application development and deployment. There are a lot of silos, silos that help in packing your any kind of databases into operators, any kind of applications into all the cloud native facilities, and not forgetting to mention the very interesting data engineering projects that we have, So all these things are quite changing the way that we think about, the way we try to approach business problems and business values. We know that we are not entangled to just text anymore. We are being bombarded by a lot of new kinds of media to be processed in our business applications. So I would try to start with a brief introduction for each of them to talk about what they are currently doing in this and what is their exposure on either cloud native applications or data intensive applications or any kind of new things that they have ventured in the recent past. So would you folks mind briefly explaining or summarizing your experiences on developing or managing such kind of cloud or data intensive solutions? I'll go in the same order that we introduce ourselves. Is that okay? Yeah, okay. So then we start with the Pier and then I move along.
Hi, Suriya. Hi, everyone. I'm actually from Temasek Digital Tech. We are relatively young, maybe 3 to 4 years. So we got this advantage to use cloud native solutions for many of our applications. So we try to use the cloud native solutions where possible because most of the time it saves us some time. And I'm actually an ML engineer on the application development side. So we are using the Legend stack, Jira, Bitbucket, and Confluence. So what we do usually is to deploy applications by Jenkins onto an OpenShift Kubernetes cluster. And where cloud native comes in our various applications is things like Lambda, where we use Lambda to trigger, let's say if I upload a file onto S3, for example. So the S3 file triggers via this Lambda to do some further processing down the road. This was useful in certain applications, like when we wanted to take out portions of text from PDFs, things like this. We call it information extraction. That's the sexy term for that. Also, initially, we also did quite a few search engines. So initially, we wanted to do our own indexing. So basically, trying to make use of open source frameworks like Fires from Facebook and other forms of ways of trying to get embeddings into the index. But quickly, after a few times of deployment, we realized that it's not a sustainable solution to maintain all these things ourselves. So we started to explore things like Elasticsearch, hosted Elasticsearch. I mean, Elasticsearch instances on AWS. Basically, we are AWS shop. And so we slowly migrated all these indexing portions into AWS with a bit of a compromise, but the trade-off is better reliability and stability. Other than that, we also make use of things like ML services like TextRack. So basically in order to retrieve all those portions of text from the documents. Also make use of things like Comprehend, which allows us to basically Comprehend is a machine learning text NLP kind of a service from AWS. So we make use of this to easily get things like entity recognition, basically to find whether certain words are talking about an organization or let's say a geographic location, and get better insights from the text itself. Also, you can do sentiment analysis on that as well. You can also do text classification. Recently, they keep on improving it. So recently, you are able to feed your own data into their model also. So that's pretty interesting. So I'm actually on the machine learning side. So we touch some data, but we are not the actual guys who work on the data. So we have actually a data engineering department where they use the AWS managed Airflow to do data processing on the very high volume data. Again, I didn't touch all these things, but it seems to be working out well for them. they're using Spark jobs with this managed airflow. I guess all these things, relying on this cloud native services, it's better in my opinion than deploying our own services internally, because one thing is you benefit from the scaling capabilities. The other thing is pure laziness, because I don't want to deploy my own ML model if I don't need to, because I don't want to deploy my own ML service if I don't need to, because whenever we deploy something, we have to go through certain checks and balances. We have to check whether the container is vulnerable. We have to do code integrity. We have to code coverage to the PyTest. So if I use AWS service, I don't have to do that. so that's a major plus point for me.
That is very
enough from
interesting.
me, I guess. Yeah.
See, I think you very easily summarize the benefits. It's not just productivity, but it's also the ease of use. You see, you've been mentioning all these lambdas, which is serverless, and this per invocation model is really going to be a lot of economic savings for you as well. That's interesting. Ram, would you like to?
Yeah, sure. So I think like Pearlim said, they are AWS shop. We are predominantly Azure shop here. So we work mostly on Microsoft platform. So from my experience on a recent project where we employed the cloud native practice on Azure platform. So we had a custom ASP.NET portal which was hosted on Azure, and the data is stored in the backend of Dynamics 365, which was on cloud. So for the portal authentication, we had those sync pass my info APIs, and the retrieval of portal data and the backend processing logics all were deployed using the ASP.NET Core Web APIs on Azure Web Apps. So we use kind of the Azure Docker Container Service to deploy, and the development methodology we followed is Azure DevOps practice. We completely got into it. So if you ask me, the reason why we adopted the cloud native approach rather than the traditional approach is where the client was willing to embrace the DevOps culture, but they could not afford a downtime. So they want everything to be shipped fast. When keeps coming in, the dev cycle was very rigorous for us. We continually received feedbacks every now and then. It was very, to say it was very tiring, but then it was very rewarding in the end. Also, the CI/CD pipelines streamline the development of deployment and development applications without impacting the operation. I think we had a fair share of challenges in following this cloud because it's a kind of first thing for us. The slow release cycles at the initial phase, which has detrimentally affected the pace of the sprints we followed. And we also had to integrate with the existing systems, which was very like a developing Stone Age period. So very difficult to integrate. So we had to refactor those systems as well and get into the sprints. And lastly, all those cloud native concepts was kind of very difficult to explain to the clients. So they're very alien to those words. So we have to refactor those things also to make them understand what we are really doing. I think the overall experience was quite rewarding and very good learning for us.
When you spoke about cycles, Ram, how was it initially to bring them into iterations? Were you able to see a big difference over the period of time when you said you reduced the time cycles?
I think the initial, so a lot of POCs were done. So to show this really works, this approach we're going to follow. So they kept asking, can you do this? Can we do that? So we kind of added them inside our sprint, kind of delayed the thing because we have to discuss a lot. It's a very big user group. So everyone has their own feedback. We have to question everything and we should make the user upset, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I understand that when you say sprint zero, it's not easy after all, right? A lot of POCs. And
it's very struggling.
That's interesting.
We got onto the base.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, you got the boat sailing and that's interesting. Yeah. So can I ask Pranay?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. So just a brief background about my experience in building data and search-based product. As Pier Lim pointed out, using the services from the cloud, my experience spans on when I was working with the startup and building the analytics product and we're building the search engine on top of AWS. And we were predominantly on AWS, and as the product matured and we needed more and more services from multiple clouds. And then we realized the importance of having a multi-cloud approach in solving problems. And in my recent experience after that as well, what I realized is that product development involved using applications and services for multiple cloud, and this involved maybe using APIs or maybe services that is very relevant for the project and application, but on granular scope of things included challenges in putting things together. And today in my role at Oracle, I'm understanding the real needs of multi-cloud deployments as more and more organizations are moving towards having security, having the manageability aspects of their deployment taken care of, and at the same time they want to build applications quickly and just use best of what is offered from different cloud providers. So that's the reality today, from single service points from different cloud to now emerging how these things merge towards a more cohesive, where most of the utilities and the things finer grained details are hidden and not visible and manageable for the operations team. And that's the promise of the cloud native solutions. And that's where I think is the industry is going towards, because the need is not just solutioning on one cloud platform, but more and more utilizing what is best at the current scenario, and then making a point of very easy and integration from service points of view. Yeah.
That's interesting. So Pranay, we have multiple choices, right? We have Kubernetes, Mesos. Is your organization, we even have the Oracle, Google's Anthos box, which was released in the last tech conference. Do your organization prefer to have your own, or are you trying to sell the big Kubernetes camp, and any directions at this point?
Yeah, from the Oracle, we are moving towards the cloud native
Cloud Foundation, which is Kubernetes.
Yes.
OpenStack.
Yes, and we have the OpenStack. We support all the OpenStack framework on solutioning on cloud native solutions. And yeah, so as the industry is going towards the direction, we support that as well.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah,
because I do see a lot of companies coming into the CNCF IO forums. Every day there's something new, and the way that the Kubernetes ecosystem is changing is very, very interesting. Thank you, Pranay, for that intro. So can I call Vivek Kartina?
Hi. I'm currently working with a public service client, Inland Revenue Authority of Singapore. Their tax portal is a very large monolithic application consisting of several modules, and previously it was hosted on premise. And there were a lot of pain points because size of the application is really, really large, and the maintenance was a huge challenge. And currently, IDaaS is moving towards cloud. The system is being transformed to cloud native approach for harnessing cloud's most powerful advantages, pairing with cloud optimized technologies like microservices, containerization, CI/CD. The existing monolithic application is broken down and transitioned into microservices style architecture, which promotes decoupling and minimizes the cross-dependencies across various modules. This move is a very challenging and time-consuming, but at the end of the implementation, it's going to be a very rewarding one, because there are multiple advantages going forward with this. Like it is easy to scale using microservices as demand for the application increases. You can increase the resources that most needed the microservices rather than scaling the entire application. This also means that the scaling is faster and even more cost efficient as well. And also the microservices architecture provides isolation to failures. If a specific microservices fails, you can isolate the failure to that single service and prevent the entire application to fail. The fault isolation means that your critical application can stay up and running even when there is some modules failing. And also for deploying updates to the application, we can do without bringing down the entire application. So each microservices can be deployed independently as needed, enabling continuous improvement and faster updates. So this is the project that we have been working on recently.
So I have a question for you. When you say microservices, we have this Micronaut, which is popular. We have the Spring Stack, which is popular. We also have the .NET RT on the race. We have Orcutus coming up, Quarkus. So every group is coming up with this style of startup frameworks. Which one are you using, and is there any specific reason?
We rely completely. This is something that is confidential, and I can't share.
Oh, it's okay. It's
You
okay.
understand?
Yeah. So it's the tech stack that you prefer to
Yes,
know.
yes.
Okay. Yes, okay. I have another interesting question for you, Karthy. See, 20 years ago, I started as a Java developer. At the time also, it was very interesting because every company was giving different ways to deploy the same application. Okay? So we had Oracle application developer certification. We had WebSphere certification. We had the BA WebLogic server certification. And I used to go and do all those things, you know. And what I realized is it's just the web wizards that are different. It's all one and the same. Do you feel so because you have worked up on these two stacks, you know, Azure, AWS? How much do you think they are very similar or different from a developer's perspective, you know?
From a developer's perspective, I don't think there is any huge change. The real change comes when you're planning the infrastructure and the high-level architecture of an application. So that's where the real deal is.
So it looks like in IT, life goes in cycles, you know, one goes.
Yes, that's
right.
right.
So what we used to do on the application server is what now we are trying to do with the whole stack, including the databases, and that's very interesting. So I'll just move on to the next part of discussion. So the next part of discussion I want to take up is on data engineering. If you have comments, you can. If you want to skip that, that's fine too. See, in data engineering, what is happening is most of the time we are worried about cleansing and preparing the data from different sources, and then we put in a lot of efforts to model our analytical whatever analytics that we are trying to approach on our problem on, and then of course we see how we train the model, test the model, and then push it into production. So the data engineering is basically coming up with its own style of life cycle of activities. You know, you can't no longer apply the same software development lifecycle activities to data, you know, so that's becoming different. Of course, we have this MOps coming in, we have the data ops coming in, but data engineering by itself is growing a lot, and every organization wants to become data driven. You know, they're talking about insights engineering, they're talking about dynamic dashboards. So every company is collecting a lot of data that you try to use for this data pipelines. So in your organization, do you have such kind of data-driven projects? And in case you have, what's your challenge with data growth, with the practices that is involved in this different phases of data projects? Because you can't treat the business applications processes and the data project processes very similarly, right? So definitely there is life cycle activity challenges, data ingestion challenges, training challenges, production challenges. So is there anything that you think is interesting that you would like to summarize in your own experiences? You've got any observations, reflections? We'd really love to hear it. You know, not in any or anyone can go in and add in as you like it.
I can start.
Yeah, sure, Pranay.
Okay. So one of the major challenges in data engineering is the fundamental problem of having multiple types of data. So currently, it's not just relational data that we are dealing with. It's graph, document, and key value stores. So and in those span of time, you will come across maintaining 5-6 different types of data, and then when it becomes even more challenging when you have integration, you have manageability, and most important, you have security that comes into being. So the fundamental problem is having separate data types and then having them integrate and manage them for solving the business use case. And today, if you see, most of the use case is about how do you understand your overall, like for example, the customer's 360. So it's about how do you connect different sources of your data and multiple types. So this is one fundamental problem that starts from the data type, and this is a problem of having multiple data types within your organization. And then as you grow, and this problem grows as the access to data is a problem. That means that now every person in a team is an analyst. And when you are an analyst, you need to have an access closer, you need to stay closer to the data. And this is a challenge because now from the evolving architectures of centralized teams now to self-evolving teams of self-service, and now teams which are evolving in the more autonomous forms, where each team and each domain has their own access and serviceability of their data ecosystem. So overall, I see the challenges on data types, managing and maintaining them. Very quickly, it becomes very bottleneck, and at the same time, the access to data and having a centralized repository other than democratizing data applications and enabling different teams to have access and the rights to use as they for their use cases. So these two are the major challenges currently that I realize.
That's an interesting perspective. So to just summarize, see, there are two planes that Pranay is talking about. One is collecting the data to the data lake, and the second one is building a metadata or a dictionary or information about information. So these two layers are always very interesting to look at. And data lake is a simple passion word that everybody uses. Think about the way that we do archival, the everyday bookkeeping, all these things are interesting to know. Anyone else has got something to add to this here?
I would like to share my perspective. The data engineering teams are changing so rapidly, whether it's the tools that they use or the people that they are composed of. However, it's abundantly clear that there's a growing need for efficient and scalable data workflows in the organizations. Managing the infrastructure for data engineering is a huge challenge at the moment. And the answer to that will be DataOps. DataOps is a term that has just started to gain momentum recently. I feel that it is going to be the backbone of any analytics organization in the next 5 years for data analysts to do their job successfully. The data warehouse has to perform well without any infra issues. And for analytics engineers to write the modeling workflows, and orchestrators need to be up and running without any infra issues. So I think just like software engineering teams need the DevOps, I feel that analytics team will be in the hands of data ops engineers. That's what I really feel about it.
That's an interesting vision. Yeah, definitely. We have IT people love labels. We come with acronyms, fashion words. Every year we want to change things. We say ML ops, data ops. I don't know tomorrow what we call it, but it is here to stay. Yeah, that's interesting. Any more comments?
There's one full stack data scientist. That's the new one.
Which is true. Recently, I was looking into ads for the data engineers and data scientists. Many of them want front-end engineers particularly. They have all these things that they have done, but they need to carry it back to the customer. So again, yeah, that's definitely an interesting observation.
Wanting 7 years of experience for Kubernetes.
That's right. I even saw that meme which was asking Kubernetes is a recent invention, and they were asking a timeline which is more larger than that. Yeah. So even when I was trying to paraphrase, for instance, Pranay's experience, I wanted to type in 10 years of data engineering. Then I thought, no, that's an oversight. To rephrase, this is PI projects, then data engineering. So all this is interesting. Creates a lot of content, definitely, to laugh about.
Maybe I can share a bit about how we do the data engineering.
Go ahead,
what I've observed from the data engineering guys, they use the managed airflow. So AWS has this totally managed airflow instance that they can easily spin up and decommission whenever they want. So if you have tried setting up an Airflow instance by yourself, you know how difficult it is. But in AWS, it's just a click of the button, then you just wait for 15 minutes or so. Yeah. So I see them just setting it up and running. Of course, you still have to code all the things all the Python code that you need to do transformation and all that. But that really takes away one part of the complexity. You sort of outsource that portion to AWS in a sense. The other thing is for us, back to the app side, the challenge is not so much of volume, rather it's data integrity. Because Temasek, we buy quite a lot of data sources. So we have Bloomberg, Capital IQ, FactSet, PageBook, Crunchbase. And one major challenge is to be able to harmonize all these sources. This is one problem that I have. So if anybody can solve it for me, then I'll be glad to go your service. but yeah, our use case is a single pane of glass where we can access all these data sources by searching for one particular company. So let's say if I search for Dell, and then all these data sources from the various places, they are harmonized on a single dashboard. It's not an easy problem to solve. So for example, if you want to match Grab, for example, you want to match it to Grab Food or Grab Holdings, all these are actually available in, let's say, PageBook's database. So we are still investigating. So currently we are mostly relying on the person in the loop, then using ML to give some hints and pointers, but we are giving it a confidence score instead of, like, say, because ML, you know, there's some error. You have to accept some degree of error if you are going to use an ML solution. Yeah. But I think this probably is the way to go. So based on the various fields, we try to make a determination whether these, let's say, Grab from Bloomberg's database can fit to FactSet's particular role. So yeah,
it looks like
this is quite
for
a common
adapters,
problem.
Right? Yeah, it looks like for adapters. Yeah,
it is a common problem, I think, actually.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
yeah, hashtag startup idea.
I think it's a curse, not only for software, but also for data engineering. We always look for silver bullet, and it's not easy to find one, right? I mean, one integrated big tool that solves,
Yeah.
But also the good side, when Ram speaks, I really understand that the cloud vendor packaging gives us a lot of productivity. So when you say one click of a button, you go, even Google offers the same, right? Dataproc, Flow. So they have all well tested. And then you know that once you are bringing into this tailored stack of things, it flows through quite easily, right? So that's a very interesting observation.
So yeah, one more thing. So I don't work for data engineering, but then I have my friends who work for that. So I had a funny conversation with my friend who works in the data-driven company. I asked him how clients perceive the decisions they make. He said, Ram, you know what? We make decisions to companies who don't care about our decisions. This is what he had to say. So further asked about the challenges that they face every day. They said they need the right talent to work on the data and the right tool they need to identify, because without that, you won't get the decisions that you want to get out. Second is data quality, as Pranay said. So data comes from various sources and various formats. So bringing them and the one single point of truth is a challenge for them. And lastly, having a culture where your decision makers and the data analysts, they should have a quality of interaction, like the decisions they make, it has to be challenged. So kind of culture that needs to be there. They can't go implement. It has to be challenged. And the kind of interaction that is needed in the workplace, he offered me that.
Yeah, that's I concur with your comments and your friends' comments, Ram, because when we go and do cloud projects, the scope is very clear. They say that this is the business outcome that we want to achieve. This is the kind of application we want to build. But the moment we want to go and do data engineering projects, we ask them, what's your question? What do you want to find out? And this question, there is not yet at all an answer many times, and they don't know what they're looking for. So we have very clear processes for the past 40, 50 years on requirements engineering in the software field. But with data engineering, it always starts with powerful questions, insights, and sometimes it's like Socrates, what the world's view is, and then how we want to implement that, that's completely getting dithered. So we have very philosophical, high-level data generative questions, and we really are stuck translating them down the line into the operation teams to get it done. And as you say, by the time we implement the project, the questions are no longer relevant. Nobody's interested in looking at it. And so maybe we should always put a dollar value to this. Then we say this question, this much dollars, and then people start listening to us. Maybe that's one way. Yeah, I'm still just thinking aloud. That's interesting. So I want to move on. In between, we have questions from the audience. That's a constant question. I think we have it in most tech panels. How do we constantly keep up with new developments? How each of you keep up with new developments? Any tips for anyone who is looking at improving on all these greenfield technologies?
Maybe I can share a bit.
Sure.
Yeah. So what personally I do? Actually, you have to see like how you personally learn. So what I do is I observe that I can learn by listening and also by using videos more quickly than I would from a book, for example. So I tend to listen to podcasts from where I can listen to practitioners where they are working on actual projects. Some podcasts that I recommend Practical AI, I think Practical AI. And there's this AI in business or for business, something like that. So from here, you can actually see all the use cases and kind of, if you will, you can like copy what they are doing and also understand the roadblocks that they have encountered. And the other major resource that I use is YouTube, using the YouTube videos. So basically anything that you want to learn nowadays, right? You just go to YouTube and you search and it's there. So one just study out the data topic for machine learning in order to keep up to date with the new papers for NLP that's coming up like every other week. There's this guy called Yonic Culture on YouTube. And he really goes through all the new papers that springs up. And I don't have time to look at all the papers, so I just listen to his explanation. And I do get a gist of what the paper is about from his explanations. It saves me time, and also it's useful to see things from another person's critical view also, because he does add his own comments to it. Yeah.
It's interesting.
And I will also like to very, very good points added here. So one of the ways that I keep up with what is happening is to study the past. And Suriya, you also highlighted a very important example. Like, for example, when Java came in, it was a platform independent, you can deploy anything, right? Previous to that, where Netscape happened, when it's like one platform, it's like you make the technology ubiquitous, right? And then the same thing is happening with cloud native, right? It's the same trend. The history repeats itself. When one technology becomes very easy and independent of the like big walls, then it's about adoption. So this is the one aspect. We study the past to see what's happening, going to happen in the future.
To predict patterns, yeah. Right.
Yeah, and the second aspect is to always be open to hearing independent views, because if you start Google searching and finding out, it will be very centric towards our company, but always look out for independent views and how people have solved their challenges and then getting in answers from that. Yeah, so these are the 2 points that I added to what Pier highlighted here.
I remember a friend always quoting me, if you listen to somebody who has got a 360, 180 view from you, you really have something to learn from them. Yeah.
I think I second to Lim what Lim and Pranay said. So that's why we try to organize the meetups every month, wherein we showcase all the new developments in the technology that we work on. So that, because we get audience from a variety of things. We get the business users, the citizen developers, the developers, and could be anyone. So everyone gets an exposure of what is going on in that field. So that we recommend to make people attend those sessions. And also YouTube is there for them. You can subscribe to blogs, newsletters, as such.
That's interesting, because I think the new generation is audio video generation, and it's much faster because the pace at which the information is coming in, we no longer have patience for books, specs, and documentation as we used to. Yeah, that's interesting. Vivek, any comments?
Yeah, I actually second the person who said so.
All the comments plus certification, right?
Actually, I heavily rely on Udemy tailor-made courses and also like content on YouTube. It really helps us save a lot of time because most of us have full-time jobs. So the learning really happens post-work and on the weekends. So it's really the big deal is how effectively we are using that time, and the challenge is quickly grasping a lot of information. So the best way is going forward is
online education.
Online courses and video tutorials are one best way to learn new technologies and new stuff. That's what I really
very interesting. See, I've been a teacher for many years, so learning is my business too, right? Because I have to see what's latest, translate. I usually use a two-prong approach. One is like what you guys are saying, audiovisual podcasts. Podcasts works very easily for me because I can do it when I do my morning walks or doing my dishes. Podcasts, I usually go for software engineering daily and tech memes. They keep me updated on the trends. I also look at the data engineering memes, and AI is new to me. And thanks, Pier, for introducing me to that. The second one is I look for audibles, whereby I'm not distracted. This is very useful when I want to understand the landscape, to understand the concepts and the thinking behind. But my style of learning is doing and seeing, so I like to build things. So if I'm trying Spark for the first time, I probably will build a prototype in Spark to see how it works. So building is another way of very quickly learning. You always get inputs from these audio visuals and things like that, but having to build it via workshops or actual case studies, quick building is I'm like the beaver, I like to collect things, build something, do it yourself kind of learning is most suitable for me. Maybe I'm a kinesthetic learner, I don't know. Yeah, that's to add also. Thank you. So I'm going to go on to the next set of discussions we are having. This is regarding the cloud nativeness. So we are talking about scaling, and scaling is very challenging, right? So when you talk about scaling, you talk about scaling in terms of breaking down your application architecture complexity, like Karthy was talking about microservices, Pranay, Pier were talking about data pipelines, and then Ram was talking about 360-degree analytics projects. So we have this way to deal with application complexity. But when it comes to container complexity or virtual machine complexity, we are looking at tech platforms, Kubernetes, OpenStack to help us scale. On the data side, we also look at NoSQL databases, new SQL databases. So you look into the art of scalability book, the way it talks, they talk about 3 dimensions: application or functional complexity, data complexity, and replication complexity, right? So these are the 3 different scales that they're talking about. So you talk about that. You have any particular experience that you have faced in terms of scaling challenges? Anyone, if you have something to share on cloud native challenges, particularly on the scaling dimension, we'll be very interested to hear.
So actually, there is a real difference between moving to cloud and moving to cloud native. Like if a company is going to move its monolithic application to cloud, say for example, if it's AWS, they are hosting it on EC2, or say if it's Azure, they are hosting it on VM. You really cannot expect the real advantages, because it's not going to perform well. Maybe you will save some money on efficient usage of the server resources on cloud, but it is not going to do any wonders to your application. So the real deal here is really refactoring your application to to harness the advantages of the cloud. Say for example, you have an organization is having a really large application, and scaling up is really difficult, because say for example, you have 10 different modules, but your viewership is only for the high viewership is only for one particular module, but you end up scaling the entire application. So this is where the containerization really helps a lot, because when you break down the monolithic application into separate microservices, you can only scale up the particular microservice that has large viewership rather than the entire application. So this really, saves a lot of money for the company, and also, this server utilization percentage becomes really efficient. So that's what I would like to share.
I think I will summarize what Vivek is trying to say. Selective scaling is the best part about cloud nativeness. It works in all architectures, but it works much better in microservices as well as serverless. In microservices, it allows you to focus on things that are important for you. And in serverless, it allows us to just do on-demand scaling. So there are these different dimensions that are coming in now. I think that's a very good point to make. Yeah. Anyone else? So I think that's good. Yeah, I think we have also heard a lot about the tools as we were going along. You were also trying to give us mention about tools that you have used, your experiences, and of course the stories that are shareable without any content confidentiality breaking. So thank you very much for it. I will make the next question from the panelists. They are asking a very tough question in this. How do you convince your management to move into this new infrastructure? That's challenging. It's not just business, it's operations. There are a lot of changes that is involved when you want to migrate, right? So it's going to be sometimes it's investment that you really can't break it down into ROIs that easily, because we are talking about two different animals. Okay? So what is your experiences in doing such migration? Anyone?
Suriya, actually, there is a lot of hesitancy that the companies, they really, hesitate about the security of the application when we talk about cloud migrations. So that's the first thing that comes to the organizations. So we really need to, explain them like what are all the layers of security, what are all the security options that is available for, say, data in rest and data in transit, like how you can design a VPN or a virtual network. And there are multiple offerings in cloud these days, especially in AWS and Azure, as far as I've worked on. So I think the the challenge is to explain the organization about the security of cloud, and we have to assure them that the data is going to be really safe. So I think that's the one big challenge for this cloud migration.
Definitely, security is a big challenge. Anyone else?
And adding to that, so these migrations and the getting into the new platforms, understanding the business drivers. So business sees three things: market growth, quickly adapt to changes and build apps quickly, risk mitigation, reduce risk, and also cost reduction. So all the promise of the cloud and the cloud native solutions is towards this. How do you be agile? How do you be resilient to to change and scale your operation at the same time, or how you optimize and be efficient about your development practices. So so it's always starts from the business outcome, and then it translates to what technology can provide and do it for you. And if examples and use cases are cited from the business outcome, it's more adoptable and can be taken up.
I'm going to rephrase or paraphrase what Pranay was just trying to say, which means talk their lingo, right? You want to convince your bosses, talk their lingo. So you'll be able to get through your ideas better if they see the connection to what kind of market you're trying to serve and how betterments come into your business. That's a very nice way to put it.
Yeah, precisely. I was going to say similar to what Pranay was saying. Basically, the senior management frequently at times they're not tech people most of the time, unless maybe the CTO. So you really need to phrase the presentation, if there is one, in a way that they understand, and also things like proof of concept projects helps. So maybe actually in our case they are very used to consultants showing them a lot of slides. So it really changes the game if you can show proof of concept to actually show the thing in motion, but in a smaller condensed form. Then it really helps to convince them if they can see it, feel nice. Yeah.
I remember my mentor saying the proof of the pudding is in the eating, So yeah, so it is important to show them what is possible with these technologies. Yeah. Ravi, you've done a lot of POC. You'd like to add anything on the POC?
Yeah. So I was about to share this thing. So we had this project where the data was sitting on-premise, and the customer was very reluctant to move it to cloud because of the data security. As you know, Singapore, they give very much importance to data security, right? So we kind of went for the hybrid cloud approach where we moved the front-end application to cloud, and the data was still resetting it on-premise. We had all those APIs which we made use of the backend to show them on the front. So that's why we went for the hybrid cloud approach, wherein the application was on the cloud and the data was still residing on-premise. So they were comfortable with that approach. As long as the data is residing on their premise, they are okay with it. And the scalability was left to the cloud to go up.
I think it is not just Singapore. Many government organizations have that. Yeah. So yeah, I think cloud is starting to look at such.
More stricter.
Yeah.
For data
That hybrid approaches convinces both parties. It's a win-win, right?
Yeah.
Very interesting. Karthy was about to say something.
When we talk to the management, I think this is a major point. We can what cloud really offers them is the company, they can trade the capital expense for variable expense. They can invest heavily on the data centers and servers before you know how much you are going to use. They can move on to the pay for only how much you consume model. So this really saves them a lot of money, and also they can benefit from the massive economies of the scale by using cloud computing. And also the companies go global in just a matter of minutes. With cloud offerings, you can deploy your application in multiple regions around the globe with just a few clicks. This means you can provide a lower latency with a much better customer experience at minimal cost. So these are all the advantages that the company really wants to hear from us. And these are all the important points that that convince them to do the change.
I think when it comes to non-functional attributes and solution architecture, always your cloud vendor solutions is going to be much better than any kind of IT hosted data centers. So unless you have very special requirements like Ram was mentioning, or Pranay was adding one, and Lim was talking about his group of constraints, unless you have such kind of organizational constraints, definitely cloud is going to save you money. But there are also other concerns about the initial. There is always this total cost of expenditure being removed, and then the cost of running being amortized. But there is also a crossover. So there are certain companies which are in cloud for longer years, and then they realize they are really good into their particular specialization, and it makes sense for them to go back to hybrid as well. So the openness of cloud is what is going to make it survive for a longer time. So I think we are in the last 10 minutes. I'll take the next question as well as the summary question. I'll try to put in together. See, and the question is about any kind of best of the breed, any new languages that is very trendy, or any new framework or platform that's very trendy. I would like to add that to the last piece of question I had for the day. You have any advice or vision for the next 5 years to the audience? Please feel free to share. Let's start with Karthy first, and then we'll do the reverse round this time.
Looking forward in next 3 years, I think the serverless computing paradigm has become very popular in recent years. Today, I think it's one of the fastest growing cloud service model for software development, and it's continuing to dominate the industry. This is because it enables rapid application development without the overheads of server management, and the operations can be scaled very easily. So I think serverless development model allows enterprises to build applications based on large number of mature capabilities. And also this ensures fewer technical decision-making points and simpler implementations.
And the downside is a larger dependence on the vendor, right? So we have to take a balanced act, because all of these are managed services. Yeah, you have a high. That's a beautiful summary.
Yeah.
So I'm also going to add the other question. So if any one of you have comments on multi-factor authorization, alerts, management, tracking, metrics, also you can put in into your summary. So I'm going to quickly move on to say Pier to hear from him. Pier, you have any closing comments?
Okay. Actually, I don't have much that's different from what Vivek said. So basically, I think we are currently in the microservices era. So what we are actually working on is microservices in Kubernetes at the moment. And I do see a shift that's going towards serverless where possible. So likely for the next 5 years, it's probably a hybrid of that.
Okay.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so one point that I want to highlight is that we are moving from a model-centric AI to data-centric AI. So we have focused too much on collecting large amount of data and running models on them and creating the data pipelines and all those things. But it's very surprising to see what you can achieve from small data, but with a good quality data. So a lot of momentum, and also if you are aware, like Andrew has started an initiative on the data centric AI, maintaining the quality of data and making sure that is the right. And even if it's like small, there are huge benefits out of it. And the second point is that the technology is as good as how invisible it becomes. So if a good technology, if you're using too many tools and too many frameworks, and then maybe there is some inherent issue and problem. It's about simplicity and also making sure the job gets done, irrespective of what the underlying technology and what is happening underneath.
I
and
really
that's the
like
future
it.
direction.
Yeah, no chef come and claims what are the ingredients he used for the recipe. The food is nice, everybody enjoys it, So that's a very nice way to put it. And thanks, Ram.
Sure. I think I want to add that I think for the next 3 years, what I see is something movement called a low code, no code. If you have seen, where even normal users can develop a fully functioning mobile apps in under 1 hour. If you look at the Microsoft Power Platform offering of the Canvas apps, we call it, where it offers a no-code, low-code approach. The app natively gives you all the AI capabilities where you could scan your business card, it has also the mixed reality features built in, also has the the natural language processing. So everything you get it out of the box. You don't have to rely on the developers who need to build those features. Everything's there out of box for you. You just have to integrate those features inside the app. You have the app is ready for you to use. And this COVID-19 pandemic, right, it has shut down many retail shops, and online presence is the only way you could survive now. So these platform capabilities, you can have even a website running up in 1 hour, where you could just use, even using Excel sheet, you could input the data, you post to the backend, it shows up in a nice view in the website for you. So
self-serving technologies, in other words, it's very easily self-driven. You don't have to be a programmer to do something, those kind of.
I think slowly we might lose our jobs, I see.
That's a paradox. Sometimes we come up with oxymorons like that. So I think it's a very balanced view. Karthy and Pier is talking about how the application zone is going to change. We already have a lot of choices, interesting choices. We added microservices to the palette. Now we'll have more serverless wherever there is a need. And Pranay and Ram talking about data being the new generation oil, whereby which is so massive that you no longer can wait for the developers to come in and do something. You have to make it as easy that it is self-consumed by any consumer of any sort. So that's a very nice.
Maybe I could share something that's pretty interesting I saw earlier. So there's this thing that's going on right now, which is the rise of the data cloud. So there's these companies like Snowflake where they have things like data marketplace, where one can easily purchase basically, let's say, a FactSet data, and then it'll just appear in your data warehouse. Previously, you have to do the ingestion and all that. So that's
like buying.
For me, it's a game changer.
It was a cool thing for me to buy music in Apple. So sounds like
That's
now
pretty
maybe
interesting.
we'll look into subscription model down the line, just like we did for Spotify and YouTube.
Yeah, that might happen.
That's very interesting. Thank you, all of you, for taking time. It was done in a very short notice. I really sincerely appreciate your efforts to come in here and share your experiences. Really great job. And we want to individually appreciate how much this is giving back. The best part about formal education is becoming independent of it and then being able to pass it on. So I really appreciate all of you to come back and then share with us your wisdom on this session. Thank you very much and have a nice day, folks.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us, Suriya.
Thanks for having us, Suriya.